another meeting of the Lorain County Commissioners, broadcast exclusively on your Lorain County Community College education station. The Lorain County Commissioners cordially invite you to see the meetings live and in person every Thursday morning. The meetings are located in the Lorain County Administration Building, located at 226 Middle Avenue in downtown Elyria. The meetings start at 9:30 a.m. on most weeks. Now, enjoy the meeting.
Thank you. Not only did we have time for a potty break, I had time for a cookie, so it was great. Thank you, Gloria. During the break, John Dragala, who is the construction manager, mentioned one other additional possibility to me, and I would like John to comment on that to the board.
Thank you, Commissioner. While we were talking before and during the break, I was meeting with the architects and talking about the differences between the two plans, and it became apparent that there was a tremendous amount of effort that was put forth 2-3 months ago as the architects developed the reduced plan that was presented as the March 22nd, I think it was. And that is that HOK met with all the users and decided that the offices on the first floor could be reorganized and consolidated, and we could save, we're not sure because we have to go back and study it, but we could save maybe another 4,000 to 7,000, Bob. Does that sound about right? So that perhaps could be another $1 million that we could cut out of it. And as you know, that evolution of that space occurred with the consent of the users. We went through a whole series of meetings with them. So we think that's a very real possibility. Bob and I talked about it for a couple minutes. He thinks what we could do is take a look at the first and second floor plate of the 243,000 square foot plan, and we would be able to fairly rapidly make adjustments to that and get this thing going again. So not only could we save the money from the law library, which in very round numbers was $1 million, another $1 million from further reductions to the first and second floor plate as a result of those user programmed meetings in March, and then we'd save another $1 million off of that by pulling out that parking fund that was in there. We have another $300,000 that we could pull out by not doing parking off the immediate block. And we also will make a commitment to you that we will continue to pursue these value engineering items, and where they can be incorporated into that plan, we will certainly do that. We can share that information with you as it evolves. It'll be a lot easier to do it if we know exactly what plan we're working on. During the last couple of months, it's been very difficult to try to put a price on some of these things because we really didn't know which plan we're working on. If you give us a plan to work on, we pledge our strongest effort to look at those items again and give you a specific opportunity as to where we can save. We can come forth and present different finished materials, show you samples and how they would evolve, but we need to know where that square footage is so we can get this thing going again.
I appreciate that, and I feel the same way. I feel that there's millions of dollars that can be saved and cut out of here through the value engineering and other things. And also, don't forget, Jim, I'm going to ask you this. Please don't forget to talk to the city about forgiving the building permit fees. There's some more money there. They like it in the city of Elyria. We can move it to Murray Ridge. We can move it out of the city of Elyria, but we, can use that for a little leverage.
I have it on.
Yeah, we still can. We own the land out there.
No, we cannot move it out of the city of Elyria. That land out at Murray Ridge is still in the city of Elyria.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Well,
Commissioner, it is.
I mean downtown. Okay.
Right. You meant out of downtown.
Oh,
I understood.
Sorry about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going someplace else.
I will.
No.
I will talk to the city as best I can. The last time I spoke with them on the Justice Center, though, I was depicted hanging onto a building with a knife around the mayor's throat. So.
But I believe it's good for the downtown area, and I'm sure that our mayor would think the same thing. So I would like to see it in the city of Elyria, downtown.
I will be as persuasive as humanly possible.
And I want to make one comment here too about our architects. I'm really pleased with the architects. This was given to us when we went to Canada on the conference out there. That was a conference that was people were there from all over the world. It was excellent, and I guess one of our architects was headed that, or was a part of that, and also putting this book together on courthouses. which if anyone is interested in, I have it, and I'm willing to share it with you as long as I get it back.
There's another conference in Phoenix in October.
You're not allowed to go, okay? We're going to have this settled, and no, you're not allowed to go. Don't call us. Oh. When we broke, we were at talking about square footage. The November plan calls for 243,000. The March reduced plan calls for 194 square thousand. What you've offered is a possible reduction of 4,000 to 7,000 square feet, which has already been worked into the March 2001 reduced program. That would, well, I just took 7 because that was the better number, 7,000.
Plus the law library.
Oh.
Right, counting the law library, we...
Well, how many square, that's another 7,000.
Yeah, right, counting the law library, we could be making a reduction
14.
of as much as 15,000.
That's 14. Okay,
Okay,
15,000, all right.
The reason why I'm holding fast on the 195 is that's step one. Step two is how much are we going to borrow? Because then we might as well go right back to talk about the 5-year budget, which if we're going to borrow $29 million, we're going to have less than $400,000 in our general account. We're going to have to start cutting, and I'm not going to participate in that. So that's why I think if we agree to the 195, I can get that. I think with the efforts of Mr. Cordes, working with the architects, working with the construction manager, can get this project around $40 million, maybe less, not borrow as much money, not use as much cash, and have a very responsible fiscal policy so that when we do go to New York, we can say we want a better bond rating, we can get cheaper money, save more money. It's a big domino effect. So that's why the square footage cost is so important. That's step one. Step two is how much we're going to borrow, how much cash we're going to use. So that's why I'm going to hold firm to the 195, because that gives me a goal that I think we can hit the 40 million or less to get this thing done, so we don't have to borrow as much money, we don't have to use as much cash, and this is not going to be the first and only priority this county does. We have other issues that are more important than building a courthouse. And that's why I'm going to hold firm on the 195, because with the projected numbers, we're going to be in deficit spending next year, but that's because we have good cash in our accounts. Now the next step we have to work in is how do we get our budget in line so we're spending exactly what we're taking in.
Well, that's what I've been trying to go through for the last couple of months, and the money is there. We have the money to cut the borrowing down.
Not out of 243. No, the borrowing and the cash. If we use all our cash to build this thing and max out our borrowing, we're not going to have the cash over, because if you take a look, if we use the cash as it goes down,
then we're back to where we started from what I said before. You have to find out how much money you have to know what you can build. And we didn't do that. We hesitated, but we're here now.
And we got it.
Pardon me?
And we got that right here.
No, because that's only part of it. Because I also gave you what I had projected also, what I had suggested, that we haven't gone through.
Well, this says we're borrowing about $16 million. We can go up to 20 and still have about 10% of our revenue in the general account in 5 to 6 years from now, which is what we should be at. We should only have a carryover about 10%, which is about, between $3 and $4 million. That keeps us healthy. That will give us better bond ratings. That will give us the ability to borrow cheaper, and that's what I'm concerned about. There's probably, because of the cash flow, money in there that we can get. And if there is $4 to $5 million we can get that's in that budget, then that will get this project down to under $40 million, and we're still borrowing 16 million, which makes us financially secure for the next 5 to 7 years, and that's all I'm interested in right now. And that's why I'm going to hold fast in the 195. We can nickel and dime this project all the way down, but you guys are going to keep coming back. You need guidance now.
But you realize too that if we stick with the 194, that's going to cost us more to redo all these plans.
I don't mind investing even $100,000 if we can save $15 million, and it saves this county from increased ratings from Moody's and deficit spending.
But I'm not sure that we're going to have.
We have deficit spending the way this is set up.
Well, but
It doesn't take everything else into consideration, though.
I guess what I was thinking about was the difference between the two, and you've talked about reducing this, but there's no reason why the original figures could not be reduced the same way as you're talking about reducing this, so we wouldn't be at this amount. As we go, we would reduce.
I'm at a point where I'm comfortable with this number here, with the 195. I'm comfortable borrowing, which I was capped at $12 million. I can see with Mr. Rocassi's numbers that I don't mind borrowing an additional $4 million to make this deal work, which is $38 million. Now, if we can get this done to around 40 to 42, it looks like the 195 can do it.
I think that we have further borrowing capabilities.
Well, we can borrow as much as we want. I mean, we can go up to, what, 36, 38 now? What I'm saying is that there's other priorities in a justice center to borrow to max out our equity.
And Commissioner Moore, I fully agree with you, and it's never been my intention to have this be the only focus. I think that there are many, many other projects, and I think that we need to have a balanced approach to those things as we go. So I am not in favor of sacrificing everything for this particular project. But at the same time, I want to go back because this is simplistic to me, and somebody needs to tell me where I am in error. If you look at the probable cost, the bottom line, taking out the law library and the parking, that brought that project down to $48 million. If you would take out 15,000 square feet more, 7,000 from the law library, well, I took the, anyway, how much would that reduce it? The 243,000 would be reduced to about 228,000. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. So what is 228,000 times 100? Well, what's the cost at 228,000? Give me a ballpark.
You're putting him on the spot.
No, 228,000 times 165 or whatever, with all these other little good things in here. And then there's another 300,000 that he said he could take off. So I figure we could get down to 47 million.
Plus?
I can see that, well, we were, in round numbers, we were at 50 million. We're talking about taking $1 million out for the 1.3 million for the parking, or actually it was 300,000 plus 1.1, so it's 1.4 million for the parking, $1 million for the law library, $1 million for that other savings, and plus any other value engineering items that we come up with, like the elevators, the green carpet, paying for it from other funds such as solid waste and things like that, so that perhaps there's another $500,000 or $1 million in additional VE that we can come up with once we understand what the plan is.
There's probably more than that, because your value engineering study that you gave us this morning is 2.3 million, and even if we just accepted half of those, there's another $1 million.
Yes, there is one downside to that, though. The more of that value engineering list that we take, the more redesign time that it's going to take. So there will be fees associated with that.
Some of them are just like changing bricks. I mean,
that kind of stuff is very
that's
simple.
simple.
See, this is what they got.
This is
And that's
insane.
what they-
But there's a difference.
I'm going to move to stay at to accept the November 2000 approved program. Got a motion on the floor.
I understand that, Commissioner Vacy, but someone's going to have to second that motion, and I'm not just that, excuse me?
I hope so.
And I'm not just satisfied with that staying. I want to try to do something that the whole board can approve and work forward, because this is not an issue, I don't think it's an issue where we either take number one or we take number two and we walk out the door. And I'm going to have to second one of these motions, so I want it so that we could all vote in favor of it.
Well, I'm hoping we can with that, and with all the discussion that's been taking place here and the reductions. What else is there?
I apologize, but I wasn't listening when you made the motion. Would you like to say it again?
Yes, I would move to accept the November 2000 approved program with whatever reductions we come up with. But that's the program I would like to accept.
Well, I would like to accept that program too, but I think that there are some modifications that need to be made to it. What I'm interested in is if Commissioner Moore could support the motion by Commissioner Vacy for the 243,000 with the reductions that need to be made, or which can...
Would you like us to repeat those reductions?
Yes, if you would, please.
Okay. It was reducing the amount of money that was in parking by about $1.4 million. 1.1 was just in a budget adjustment. 300,000 was in not making parking improvements off the immediate block. We were talking about deleting the law library, which is, in very round numbers, is about $1 million. We were talking about reducing the consolidating the first and second floor plate in accordance with the March meetings that we had with the users. We think that could be another $1 million. We also were talking about a value engineering effort of items that could be incorporated into a modified 243,000 square feet.
The off-site
We don't know
parking.
the number of that. I said a moment ago it's a half to a million, but Commissioner, maybe you were right. Maybe it could be $1 million or $1.5 million.
And
We
then
need to look at the
also
specifics.
The off-site parking is another $1 million.
No,
Did
he's
you
already
say that?
mentioned that.
Already
That's
did that.
already in
Mention
there.
So you're talking 1.1, 0.3, 1, and 1, 2, 3.4 million, not counting the value engineering study. That takes my down to 39.6 if I like my 195,000 square foot. So now we're at $39.6 million without a value engineering study. Is that correct?
No, you're talking about off the 194,000 square foot scheme,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed, we were talking off the 243,000 square foot scheme.
Correct. So the 1.1 is already,
The
you already
190
included that. You already included that. I don't think you included the 300 is what I heard earlier, right?
The 300 was left in the 194,000 square foot plan, so that could come off the 194, yes. And it can come off the 243 also.
Right. What about the 1 million after that?
But the other, the law library
The law library,
and
that's
the
already
clerk
out there.
was already within that 194,000. That's already included in that reduction.
Right, the numbers that I was offering would come off the 49.9 plan, 49.9 million plan.
Well,
I think what I just heard you say, if you take the 50.3 that you've gotten written down here, I rounded it. The first three items came to 3.4 million. The value engineering, if you put it in at 1 million, that brings it to 4.4 million. If you take that off the 50.3, you come up with 46 million.
And which brings us at the March 2001 reduced plan.
But with the more footage.
Right, more footage, more departments in the building.
see, we're looking at these numbers here at 44 to 46, which is on this one here.
Correct.
I think with the value engineering, we get it down to $40 million.
Well, the issue is that we're, no matter which you take it off,
Right.
you can take it off the 243,000 or take it off the 195,000.
Right.
I want to go back to the square footage. It's either a 7-story building
Or 6-story.
or a 6-story building. And for the difference, the small difference, we could have the extra story. Can I tell you my favorite just homespun story? Maybe it'll help to put a little a touch on this. Years ago, we added on to our house, and we had a plan. And my brother, who did the architectural work and the building, came over and said, you know, for just this amount of money, you can add 2 more square feet onto the end of this bedroom, and you'll probably never do it again, and it'll make it more livable, and it only costs you X number of more dollars. And I said, okay, go ahead. And he did, and I'm glad he did, because we haven't added on to our house again, and we've used that space all this time. And I know this is real simplistic as compared to this, but I think it adds an element to it. We're talking about future growth for the county, and if they could bring that original square footage down a little bit and the cost down there, as you were trying to do on the second item, I think that we'd get more value for our dollars. Could I twist your arm?
I don't think they can get a 240 or 230,000 square foot justice center under $40 million. That's what I don't.
No, it'll probably be 46 million.
And I can't support that.
But David, I'm looking at 46 million
I'm looking
for
at,
the 2001 program, and I'm getting 1 less floor.
but you're also taking our borrowing. You're borrowing an additional $14 million on this plan.
Okay, let's talk about the
Well,
borrowing then. I haven't gone there because I was trying to do
we
that.
have $22 million. That's going to be for cash. Okay.
Where are you?
That's what we
I
have.
haven't
That's
looked
what
at.
John's saying. We have $22 million. That's what we have
To
set
what?
aside.
We have 22 million. All
I
right.
was willing to go 12 million, but I compromised up to 16 million.
To
okay?
borrow or
To
what?
borrow, that's what I was
Okay,
willing, and that
okay.
gets me up to 38 million.
All right.
Commissioner Vassy evaluated the budget and found quite a few more $1 million that we could probably put on this project to make it work. That probably could get us up to a $40 million Justice Center. And that's why I'm holding to these numbers. Because I think if she dug some more, we could probably find some more money.
I think there was like 6 or 7 million in there.
What is our borrowing capacity? Mr. How many, please?
Yeah, so
Right.
maybe a little about that, 40 million.
We can borrow 40 million.
Yeah. Oh, it doesn't.
I'll read.
I understand that.
Later, yeah.
But based on the numbers that I've received, if we only borrow no more than $20 million, based on a 5-year budget, we're gonna have our carryover will still remain at around 10% of our operating budget, which means we'll have about between $3 and $4 million. And right now, the way that stands, we're gonna have to borrow $29 million hypothetically. That's what's already been approved.
Well, with the suggestion I had when I brought up this budget information, we would have about $30 million to put towards this. Plus
Then
all
we-
the other savings that we're finding here.
That takes us up to a $25 million borrowing, or a $20 million borrowing.
Even if it's 25 million, whatever, if you wanted.
Well,
John.
we're gonna use all our cash, we're not gonna have any cash forwarding, and we're gonna be down to $400,000 in 5
It's
years.
not really using all our cash.
Yeah, we're gonna use, okay, I'm sorry.
I would just like to bring up the comment, Commissioners, I'd like to revisit that ceiling. We're throwing out 38 to 40 million. I believe it may be higher because of the revaluation of the property in the county, so I don't want to stick to that number right now. I could retrieve that, shortly for you, but I don't want to hang my hat on a number until we review that revaluation of property upon which that ceiling
Yeah, but the
is.
issue is there's enough borrowing capacity.
Yeah, we can borrow.
Currently, there is, right, but if it's looking to, yeah, that's true. That it's the matter of how much excess is left after the borrowing.
Do we have to talk about your motion still?
Yes, please.
Okay.
No, the motion died for a lack
Did
of
it
a
die?
second.
Okay, I
It's
didn't
dead
know.
then.
So now what?
I'm comfortable with the 105, but I don't know.
I'm trying to talk you in, I'm trying to talk you into just expanding your 195 a little bit. You come up.
expanded a lot already.
Oh, I know you've grown so much since you came to this position. But Commissioner,
Yes.
we could, for that
But this
difference, we could have one more floor.
But I
Well
don't
then,
want- I
Commissioner
wanna-
Blair, why don't you just second the motion?
Yeah.
Because your motion is not exactly what I want. I mean, you didn't add all.
Here we go, back on merry-go-round.
Okay.
Well, you know what, Mary Jo, you and I both have been working on this for a long time. Commissioner Moore has not been working on it quite as long, but I think we all realize the importance of this issue to Lorain County, and the decision we make today is going to be with this county for 100+ years. So if it takes us a few more minutes, I've already been to the restroom and I had a cookie, so I don't care. I mean, I just think I think we've got to come up with something that is palatable to all three of us.
If we build a 243,000 square foot Justice Center for $38 million, it's going to be cheap. That's what I think. That's
Well, I don't
It'd be
think we're gonna
cheaper
milk
if we
it
do
for-
the cuts.
No, if we do the cuts,
38
it's
million.
still, no, I'm just saying if that's the number. I mean, that's the number I'm comfortable with financially, right? I mean, that's the numbers I'm basing the decision on. You can't, we're not gonna, and I agree, I don't think we should build a cheap courthouse. I think we can build something that will last. Right now, the situation is, I don't think is fair for the judges or the system. I think what we're building is gonna be proper, it's gonna be correct.
Well, the judges
We're
were,
keeping the old courthouse, there's other options we can do.
can I bring this up to judges? And every user, that we had a committee, they made the decision. They made the decision on the November 2000,
And they came
Site.
back and agreed on the new one.
because we
Yes, they
forced
did.
them into it.
Well,
No,
but
they were
I think,
agreeable. They
but
were
I,
agreeable.
but I think those issues that John brought up were the reductions in the first and second floor. That's the issue that he just brought forward for us. So this is what I'm trying to see if we can't come closer together on both sides of the issue, starting out with the November, but having them look at that. I've taken so many notes, I've lost them. Well,
That was a part
not
of the
only the
motion,
value engineering,
Commissioner.
but the first and second floors, because they've reduced the footprint in the March 2001 reduced program, and they can carry that forward. And kind of combine the two. So it would be we would end up probably borrowing a little bit more than you would care to, but we would be getting some of the square footage that Commissioner Vacy wants with a little bit of squish to it.
That was part of my motion.
What are you looking for from me? Want me to, I mean, my,
No, I don't. I
need
want you to agree with what I'm trying to do.
I'm holding firm on the 195. I think we can do it for around 40. I mean, I think we can stay at the 38. I am worried about the financial stability so that we can get better ratings through Moody's, so that we can do other projects, which, let's face it, I mean, we're going to have a lot more people coming here talking about Route 57 next. And fixing
Commissioner Moore, I fully agree with you, but no one has convinced me, somebody needs to, that we can't do both.
Do both. Well, okay.
Can't do
Okay, let me show you.
the economic development, no, the economic development projects that I
Right.
partnered with you on.
Right.
And that we
I
can't have this
appreciate
justice,
it.
and I appreciated that too, and that we can't have this scaled down 243,000 Justice Center too, without frills. I'm not talking about a
No, I
cheap
know.
thing, but something that will last and that we will,
But I already spent all my favors earlier. I mean, what I did is I wanted a 170,000 square foot building. I wanted the prosecutor's office, the visiting judge, all in the old courthouse. I thought we already agreed on a 195 2 weeks ago.
we did.
I thought we did.
We all
Excuse
did.
me, but
All
that
three of us
was-
did.
Wait, and that's
All
why
three of us did.
now I got to compromise again, and now I feel that I can't because financially I'm already going to a point where I personally believe the county can afford borrowing $16 million on this project, using their 22, that gets us to 38. With Commissioner Vacy's work on the budget, we can probably get another $4 million, and I can tell you right now, we will go over on this project. Hopefully not with Mr. Cortez at the helm, but there's a lot of things that can happen in government projects. So I am concerned that I think the size is doable. It's better than what we have now. I think it's good for the next 20 years. And
But we
that's my own
don't-
personal opinion, but that's where I'm going to stand on that. So
We don't want to look for just 20 years, and don't forget, this is not going to be done for another three years probably, and by then,
You and I are
think
running
if
for
we go,
re-election.
but if we go with this, with the reduced square footage, that space is going to be filled up before we even get in there.
well, I know if you build a barn, you can fill it. So
And I agree with
that's
that.
what happens.
And I agree with
well,
that.
then I'd like to stick at the 195.
Um,
So because it's going to be a borrowing and cash issue after that. So
Well, we can gain positive arbitrage on this issue as well. And anybody out there want to say anything? Mr. Gordon?
Well, I think Mr. Schwartz should really be the one on the
You have to come up to the,
spot.
sorry.
It just seems to me that we're so close, and one wonders if we couldn't be in the middle between we've already taken the law library out of the 243, so we're below that number now. There's some other things that that could be looked at on the base of the building that we talked that you mentioned. And it seems to me that building the the 7-story piece and coming to about taking about roughly 20 to 25,000 off of the 243 might be a middle ground that could be accomplished. We're still, as John mentioned, the numbers that we're still looking at for the value engineering. We're still going to be looking at that. I think we've dissected the materials in this building so that there's really nothing that's terribly overly done. I mean, the materials have already been, we've been looking at those numbers and taking a lot of the costs out. So we've really been pressing this down, but to get this off the dime, and it just seems like the March scheme with one more floor. I mean, we took 50,000 out, but maybe the one more shell floor, and that would give us the flexibility for the future. And we'll work on the other items. But
so you're saying do the marsh design and add a 7th floor that would be a shelf? Is that what you recommended?
Right.
And how much would that cost, or do you need to, I don't want you guys leaving to tell me that either, because that's going to cost.
I really don't know, but the point is, when you, I mean, your unit cost is going to go up a little bit. When you shrink this building down to the 195, the unit cost of the building is going to go up a little bit. So, yeah, you start, it's a balancing act. And, I don't know, John, you might want to, or Bob might want to talk about this.
I mean, that's basically what we were doing with the modifications to the first and second floor when we came down to the 228. And yeah, we'll go. It's not just adding a floor shelf space back on. What I'm hearing is in the 228,000 square foot scheme, we have adult probation and we have the probate judge in this courthouse. That's a big difference in finished space. And then we'll work in trying to reduce that 228 in these schemes as part of that value engineering process. You know, maybe we'll get down to 220. So we're in that $45, $46 million range, hopefully. But that's part of that value engineering process as well. But that, you know, that's different than 38 million.
Yeah, I know it is.
Yeah.
You want me to call I don't know if you'll just cloud the issue more or not, Mr. Kish. I'm sorry. Any other words from the architects? Mr. Okasi? Well, I know, but I have news for you. If we would go with the larger building program and have to borrow more, as the budget director, do you feel that that would shut down our ability to do other programs that the county is interested in participating in? And I'm asking this of you in light of the fact that I believe part of the discussion about the affordability started with your department. So we've had several things that have changed since then.
Yeah, could you restate your question?
I don't even remember what it was.
Yeah, I'm trying to
I
focus
think
on-
it's going to depend on the cost of other projects that you want to contribute to.
And to take John off the hook, though, he's
Well, I don't want
he's
to take him off the hook. He's the budget director. It's
But I'm the
his
one
job.
that, put the crosshairs on him, so and I
Well.
appreciate the work he's done because we've never had a 5-year plan,
Thank you.
and I appreciate what you've done. But I mean, what's the question should we ask him now? If
Well,
if we're going to borrow 29 million, is that going to affect our cash reserves? I guess I don't know. Is that the?
I guess the best way I could sum this up is this way. If I could get through here. Yeah, maybe I can just...
I think what it boils down from my eyes is as follows. If we go to a $50 million Justice Center, that would be a $29 million borrowing. And I think from the last discussion we had a few meetings ago, that would translate into an unencumbered cash balance of $400,000.
When?
So then, by the end of the year 2005.
Thank you.
So then, you're welcome. And then it becomes a matter, I think, as I said here before, 2-3 meetings ago, it's a matter of risk and a value judgment. How comfortable is the board looking ahead, knowing that it's the future, but reasonably expect about $400,000 left in the unencumbered cash carryover.
But John, that doesn't include the figures that I had.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that too, Commissioner. I think what Mary Jovacki is saying, and she's talked to me, is that she has several items in the current budget that she feels she can, and the board members, reduce to put towards or against the borrowing, put more cash. That has not been explored yet.
Right.
I think the board may want to do
those
that.
changes-
Nothing's been solidified. It would change.
But you agree if we only borrow $16 million, we'll be hitting our 10% mark, which is our carryover.
That's
cash.
correct, yeah.
So if we do have emergencies, we do have a decrease in revenue, we can support the services that we...
That's correct also, in that...
Where do we go? We went from how much?
29 million versus 16
16 million. So isn't there any middle ground in between there? 29
20.
and 16?
20? And 22 is 42. I was willing to go 38.
42 and 25 is
Yeah.
how much more? And how much did you bring it
Not borrowing
down?
24. I'm saying I'm sick. That's why I don't think we can do it at 243. I think we can do it at 195.
Yeah, with this,
That's why. That's what I'm saying. That's why to compare numbers. We can play all day and do all sorts of things with numbers. I think we can make this work with 195, borrowing 16 million, having Commissioner Vassey's help with what she did with the cash that's in the budget, to come up with some additional revenue or money to pay down on this to get this 195,000 square foot building built. I would feel comfortable going out and working on other projects once we put this to rest that may come up to help with the other services. So.
Okay, if we put $30 million towards this, how much,
$22 million cash is what we're at right now.
what do you mean?
That's what we have unencumbered, according to Mr. Rokas.
How much?
22 million and
All
some.
right,
How much
and
of
the
that?
6 million?
Right.
But how much has that been spent?
About 7 million has been, well, 7 million was encumbered, Commissioner. About 1.6 million has been actually spent, but at least the difference between the 7 million and 1.6 is still in the bank, so it's still put towards the project. So
All right, if
in
we can-
effect, the bank is 22 million.
If we come up with all these savings all over the place with solid waste and everything else, and what I figured out, if we put $30 million towards this, you're still under what you wanted to borrow.
No, the 30 million, what's going to happen with that is we're not going to have the cash carryover. Is that right, John, or not? We've used more cash towards this project. It's going to reduce our
Unencumbered cash.
unencumbered
yeah.
cash, and we're
Because
going
of
to
the-
run out even quicker,
Because
correct?
of the larger debt service, yeah. With 29 million, in a nutshell, at 29 million borrowing, it would bring us down at the end of year 2005 to about 400,000 in
If you borrow
unencumbered
how much,
cash.
John?
29 million.
If you
Okay,
borrow
but I'm not
6
talking about borrowing
We're trying to go over
29
the
million.
budget.
We're trying to go over, she's saying if we had $30 million in cash to put down on this project, I hope, and correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Vassey.
Well, that would bring the borrowing down, Commissioner.
What she's saying is if
Blair's-
we use $30 million in cash, borrow 16 million, which keeps me happy.
You don't even
we do
have to
it?
use
Huh?
it, excuse me,
That's
you don't have
46
to
million.
use it all in cash, because you still got possibility of grants through the criminal justice area, you've got solid waste, and I'm going to approach every grant person I can for the evaluation center, and hopefully we'll get money there. So it doesn't all have to be cash, but there are other savings that are available. The engineering, the value engineering is going to bring another
Another 10%, it looks like.
million. I mean, I think we can get it down to borrowing of maybe 20 million, if maybe more. I mean, maybe less.
It's not to delay, Commissioners, but again, I think, just for my own input here, is that those areas that Commissioner raised, I'm sure the other board here, members have looked at, really needs to be reviewed, in my opinion.
Right. That's what I've been asking you to do.
That may, again, not to delay things or anything like that, but yet it may be just a suggestion to look at those. And then, I've heard 6 million and 3 million. That has not been solidified yet. I think that might be worth reviewing before a final decision is made.
I mean,
Just a suggestion.
I think all we have to borrow would be probably about $24 million, the most, maybe less. And that was my figures were based on the 49.9 million. 50 million, I based all this on 50 million, and we're reducing that already.
guess we're back to you again, aren't we?
Sure are.
Sorry.
Do you have a question, Bob?
Yes, one point that has not been addressed at all is the value engineering on the site. Now, we can sell the land in downtown Elyria, build free on land that was over the 100 acres that the county owns on Murray Ridge, possibly sell a couple other buildings like the J.C. Penney building, which we're not really in yet. We just might find up enough money, free up enough money that we can build this, and then instead of moving the probate people out to Oberlin, keep them in that area because that's where we want them. You'll have the security that we do not have now.
Thank you,
And it'll be
Mr.
much
Kish.
easier to have the security there than it is here. And there will be parking there. My Ben Franklin's broke.
Thank you for your comments. I'm not satisfied that we can't do both. and I don't want to delay this any longer, but I'm not going to look through this Bible today to look at those figures again. And I think that we could proceed with the November 2000 $243,000 moved down to include the first and second floors that you squeezed in the footprint, and plus taking off those other things and adding on the value engineering. And I would like the board to have the opportunity to see what that would come out as. I don't want to add more work to them, but since I seem to be the deciding factor here between one and the other, I want to do something in the middle. And I don't know if anybody can buy that today and then let us continue to work on the financing or not. I appreciate what you've said about the financing. I respect your background in dealing with those issues, and this is why I want to make sure that we can in fact do that. But there are also some advantages to us with the positive arbitrage and stuff, and I just think that we could work it all together, and we could I don't want to say make everybody happy, but to include everybody's point of view and yet come out with that extra floor. And that's what it amounts to as far as I'm concerned. It's either 6 floors or 7 floors. And that's kind of basic.
So, Commissioner Blair, are you seconding the motion?
No, I'm not. I'll make my own motion.
It was...
No, I'm not seconding your motion because it did not include that to my satisfaction. So it's up to you.
I thought it was the same thing as what you just said.
Well, I don't think it is. And see, that's my point.
Okay, make your motion and let's see if I could second it.
I thought I just did.
So what are you asking for, another delay?
No, I'm not asking for a delay.
Repeat the motion.
Well, okay. I would like to move that the architects proceed based on the 243,000 square foot program that was outlined in November 2000, taking into consideration the reduced program for the first and second floors that they did in March 2001, and having that square footage come off of there. Together with the other things that have been outlined this morning as with respect to the cost, i.e. the $1.4 million in parking, the 1.0 for the law library, and as I mentioned, the $1 million estimated for the first and second floor plates, and the value engineering that will be done after that. That would bring it down to somewhere in the neighborhood of 228,000 square feet.
I think that was the motion that I made, but if you would like it to be your motion, I will second it.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, discussion. If this passes, I want you guys to know I'm not going to obstruct, okay? So I will work to make sure this thing can get done for $40 million, okay? That's if it passes.
Now,
I just wanted to say that, okay? I don't want you guys to...
And I need to clarify the footage that you took off of the 243,000. Is that a definite, or are you waiting for some more review before you make a definite decision on reducing that square
You're
footage?
giving marching orders, aren't you?
Yes, it was my intent to give direction to the architects and construction manager to have a basis point from which to move forward.
I think Bob could confirm this. The numbers that you gave of the 228,000 were consistent with our intent, and we think that with a little bit of study that we can confirm that that is possible. So as I said, the idea and the concept are kind of evolved as we've been talking today, so it's the idea and the concept that we've now got a motion on the floor kind of evolved as we've been talking today, and I'm sure the architects would like a chance to put a pen to a piece of paper and make sure that it happens, but Bob, sorry to put you on the spot. Does it sound reasonable to you?
Yeah, I think what we've agreed then is it's a 7-story building. It includes the probate judge, includes adult probation. It removes the law library from the original scheme, and we kind of graphed on the changes that we did in the March scheme to reduce the footprint and get the building to 228,000 square feet or less, because we're going to continue working to try to reduce the total cost.
Okay, then where does that leave us as far as additional work? How much additional work is this going to cause?
We're going to have to work on the...
It's going to change the whole thing?
No, it's going to work on the first, second, and third floors of the building, and the basement.
Oh.
Yes. And some of it depends on the amount of value engineering that we do. If we decrease the floor-to-floor height, that's a lot of work.
No, I don't think that was her question.
No,
I think you're correct.
there is a lot of work to it, a lot of changes.
To that.
Yes.
And part of this, we also made some adjustments in the lobby and the march scheme, which we think we can do. That's, you know, with the first floor changes that we're talking about, not just the clerk, but the front entrance that combined to reduce that square footage. So, you know, if you want, we could come back with the total scheme, but I think we've got clear direction.
I'm withdrawing my second. We're back to square one.
I guess that maybe you need to explain to me, or help me understand, why you did that. Maybe it'll make
Because
a difference.
it makes too much of a change. It's just too much of a change. I
thought you agreed to all that. What was it? What was the changes?
I don't agree to changing the square footage as much as we are here.
I don't know. I guess I don't understand. Oh, this is my favorite.
He has to leave.
I don't care whether he's here or not.
Well,
we're in
it
public
depends
session,
on whether you
and
want it.
he can go if he needs to. I mean, that's up to you, Hal. I understand that you have another appointment, and if you need to do that, go right ahead. But I need to understand where you're coming from on this particular issue, because I thought that this was, I thought we were going along a path, and I need to know why you changed direction. Maybe help me understand.
Because I heard him say that it's going to cost us additional money to redo the plans, and
Okay.
I'm just satisfied with the November 2000 plans as it stands, with the reduction of the law library and the off-site parking, and that's it.
Okay, and help me out in that so that I can understand that, please.
Well, to get your maximum amount of savings from the law library, we have to reduce the footprint of the second floor, because that's the floor it's on. You know, we could make it shelf space, and we wouldn't have to change the plans at all. We just want to build it out. But then you'd only be saving about $60 a square foot at most over 7,000 square feet. So that's a savings of about $420,000. Whereas if we can remove that area from the floor, we're looking at $1 million.
So remove it from the floor.
But we have to reconfigure that floor.
So then it's still... So what's the difference in the cost between what Commissioner Blair suggested and just omitting the law library, the square footage, in the architect's costs, fees rather? What would be the difference in your redesigning? How much more work would it be to redesign what Commissioner Blair was suggesting?
I'm not even sure I can tell you that right off what that would
John,
be.
we had that soft cost hit from the March 2001, the soft cost expansion. Very similar to that.
I recall the numbers about, we were talking 400,000 to 600,000 for the March 2001 program. The amount of effort that would be required here to go to Commissioner Blair's proposal would be much less than that, because we don't have to redesign all the upper floors. All we're talking about is kind of massaging the first and second floor plate. And the study that's necessary to get into the sketching, we've already done, because you had the interviews with the users back in February, March.
I have to confirm that with them. I mean, I have to go continue that process.
I have to continue what process, Bob?
I have not gone back to the users with finished floor plans. You know, I have to sit down with them and work out who would sit where, and then we would put that into the plan. That's part of our development process.
But help me out, I thought that the reduced program, and maybe I'm not talking about the same thing, but the reductions that you got in the 2001 program were agreed to by the individuals that you met
That's
with?
at the concept level. We have to develop it more. It just takes another set of meetings with the users.
So how much would my proposal cost so that Commissioner Vacy could support it?
Now, what's the difference between the two, what I originally moved on and what we have now? What's the
I don't
difference?
think they know what we moved
If
on.
you look at that colored spreadsheet there was maybe $1 million difference in inflation and fees, soft costs, between the 194,000 plan and the 243,000. What we're saying now is it's not going to be anywhere near that $1 million, because if we don't have to do a complete redesign, we already have design development plans on the 243,000 square foot concept, and the plan that is on the table now with Commissioner Blair is very similar to that. It won't take a complete redesign.
We'll get more value for our money.
Yes. We talked before about the concept of putting a lot of design fees into something that's not going to pay back. That's not the case with this one. We think that the design effort is relatively small with a significant payback to go to the 228,000 square foot plan that's currently in motion.
Where's this 15,000 square foot going to be taken from, other than the law library?
It's taken from basically the clerk's spaces.
I'm sorry, the clerk?
It's the shifting. We worked with the clerks, we worked with the sheriff's department too in the basement. We did a number of things to reduce square footage, which we thought was a good effort. We should try to implement. So that's what we're saying. We know there's 15,000. It might be closer to 20,000 that we can take out of the building, and that's what we want to work towards.
Well, but I don't want to cap it at 228,000. That's my only problem with the motion. Other than that, I think we're agreeing.
Well, but I don't remember what I said. I think I came up with it. Do you have it back there, Roxanne?
Well, I think I do.
Can you kind of read it to us?
I have the architects proceed based upon the 243,000 square foot program that was approved in November of 2000, taking into consideration the reduction program of the first and second floors that was approved with the March 2001 program and other items that they may reduce. Taking off the parking, the law library, value engineering, bringing the square foot down to approximately 228,000 square feet.
So that's not a cap, it's an approximate.
What it is the March 2001 program, this was school aid court and adult probation act. Yeah, that's what the difference is.
Well, but the difference is that we've got 7 floors instead of 6. Help me out.
That's right.
We have 7 floors instead of 6.
And it keeps the original program intact. We made some adjustments in the basement, as Bob was mentioning. And we tightened up some areas. There were some workspaces or workstations were made a little bit smaller than that, but basically the original program is intact.
Okay.
The only thing we really will be taking out is the law library.
Okay. All right, that's what I had originally thought anyway.
So, do you want to be the seconder or not?
Okay, I will second it once again and make sure that the approximate 228,000 square foot is in there.
Any more discussion?
Okay,
Sorry.
yeah, approximate.
You wanted.
No, I don't want to cap.
Oh, okay.
So you might come down with something, but...
Okay.
Any more discussion?
That's all I have.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
No.
Okay, how are we going to proceed?
Over the next couple of weeks, the architects will go back and put pen to the paper and draw up what we just agreed to do here. We'd like to schedule a work session with Administrator Cordes to review the value engineering items. Any of the commissioners are welcome to attend. And the sooner that is scheduled, the better for us. Some of those value engineering items are significant and will affect the initial layouts that Bob needs to be progressing on immediately.
Let me interject here for a minute. It's great that we have a meeting, but the decision on the value engineering issues need to be made by this board. I'm going to get 3 different opinions on this value engineering, and there's no way that I'm going to be able to tell the architects what value engineering to put in this building and what not. We need to have a meeting with this board, with all of us present, to decide those issues.
I think it was merely a suggestion on John's part.
I know that, John. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's okay, because I had a no-win, 3-way lose on that issue. So possibly you and I can get together, schedule some work sessions with the commissioners where we can make them, and I think they need to be together, not individually, because once again, even with you there individually, we're going to come out with 3 different alternatives.
You saw how long it took us to get to this point.
And just figure how long it's going to take us to decide on the bathroom tile.
You can pick that up.
Oh, thank you.
That's all saying.
Okay, and as we go down the road, when we get to the appropriate square footage, we need to continue to work with our figures and borrowing and stuff, because there are some concerns, and we need to...
We can work out more economics as we go along.
Yes, okay. All right.
And I appreciate Commissioner Moore's commitment to assisting you ladies with this project, even though we feel strongly the other way.
Well, wouldn't do it any other way.
Thank you. Commissioner Jacoby didn't agree with us once either.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
he's not here.
No, that's not why he's not here, though. No. He was the epitome of the statesman. After he had his vote, then he worked with us.
Okay.
And I'm sure that you're going to do the same thing.
Oh, yeah, I'll watch every dollar.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Is there anybody in the audience who has not had an opportunity to speak to the board that would like to say something at this point in time? If not, I want to thank all of you. And I move we adjourn.
Do we do the board readings and everything else?
The correspondence.
We took care of everything.
Did we?
Did we do the correspondence?
Yes,
Waive
ma'am,
reading?
we did.
Okay.
I don't think we got to
It's been a long session.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, okay, we did.
And I made the motion to adjourn.
Second.
And I want to thank Hal.
Blair.
Thank you very much.
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
over a $1.7 million operations and maintenance cost on a $51 million facility. Is everybody with me on that? I'm throwing a lot of numbers out quickly. What's critical here is the fact that we are dropping the square footage and the potential cost here from a $51 million to a $32 million facility. The $32 million facility, by the way, again, is about 155,000 square feet. Bottom line, second column would show that obviously if we're going to build a smaller building, we're going to borrow less money, which would be in the neighborhood of about $10 million. Commissioner Moore at the time of February 6th had indicated that he would not like to borrow more than $10 million for a project. The $10 million really translates into an amount that would fit into a $32 million total facility. The balance between the borrowing of $10 million and the total cost, of course, would come from internal financing, which is the general fund. Column 2, again, going to the totals. For a $32 million facility, we're talking in a neighborhood of just over $2 million, $2,016,000 annually, incremental cost to the general fund versus the $4,045,000 as compared to the $51 million facility as shown in column 1. So the savings difference estimated incremental cost would be about $2 million, dropping the building size and cost down to a $32 million facility. If we'll now turn to page, again, if I'm going too fast, please raise your hand. I'm kind of really clipping along. If there's any clarification or you want me to go back on any aspects, the financing or the operational costs, let me know. Page 7 of 9. What this does is compare what, again, a $51 million facility would relate in terms of cost to a $25 million facility. Column 2 represented an effort to show what operations and maintenance costs would be on a $25 million facility. Comes to just over $1 million. The savings would be about $699,000. It's important to note that, and I think this is very important, that once building sizes are either increased or decreased, the cost does not proportionately rise or fall according to the size. It's not what we would say linear. In other words, if you cut the size of a building in half, it doesn't mean you're going to save half the cost exactly. There are certain what we in the accounting world call fixed costs, heat, light, power, that even with a smaller building, security, for example, that would not change dramatically from a large building to a small building. So it's a little bit complex, but I think what's worth noting is that if you drop to a smaller building that's maybe half the size and cost to construct, you're not necessarily going to cut your cost exactly in half. You'll save. And I think this particular exhibit on page 7 and 9 shows that if the county would go to a $25 million justice center, the total savings would be fairly substantial, but again, not linear, as we say. So column 2 tells us that the total cost to operate, finance a $25 million justice center would be in the neighborhood of $1.3 million. This is the bottom figure on column 2, as compared to the $4,045,000 figure in column 1. So bottom line, the savings difference would be approximately $2.7 million annually with the building at $25 million. All righty, I think we could set that aside. The second package you have is entitled the County General Fund Projections of Cost Impacts to Unencumbered Cash Balances in the years projected of 2001 and 2007. Again, nothing new in concept of what we're trying to do with the numbers here. We're looking at 3 different facilities at the different square foot configurations. The purpose of this schedule, before I get into page 1 of 6, it's a particularly important schedule. It's probably as important or perhaps more important than the schedule we even saw a minute ago, because what it tells the Board of Commissioners is what the ultimate impact will be on the general fund in terms of cash flow and ending general fund balances at the end of each calendar year. So we've got to know what the impact is of these costs ultimately on the total general fund. And I think a lot of the discussion this morning that went on here for an hour are really related directly or indirectly to what the general fund can afford. And again, affording, among other things, means the amount of cash that the general fund is capable of doling out, and also the ending balances that make for security into next year to appropriate and spend monies. With that said, I'd like to go to page 1 of 6. I love to do these type of schedules because if you'll notice in the first column, 2001, the numbers that you see, the first number, 32.3, is really in millions. So be careful. It's not $32.30, which I think most of us know, but it's in millions of dollars. What this schedule talks about is the fact, or portrays the estimate that with a $51 million figure, $51 million construction figure, how are we going to finance that? And what is the impact on the general fund in the year 2001? Very briefly, beginning cash balance in 2001, that's January 1st of this year, was very flush at $32.3 million. The estimate of revenue this year is $46 million, which gives us total available resources of $78.3 million. Incidentally, I think this type of scenario that I put this in is nothing new. I think most of us, when we do our checkbook balances and our reconciliation, see this type of scenario or type of structure. It's basically beginning cash, add in your deposits, subtract your expenditures, and come up with your ending cash balance. What this schedule is telling us is that with a $51 million Justice Center, with the anticipated revenues that we expect in 2001 and the anticipated expenditures, we would wind up, or we would end the year at about $15 million, $14.9 million. Interesting, you may say to yourself, what is the impact? Why are there zeros portrayed for the Justice Center debt service and for the Justice Center operating maintenance costs? There's zero because at this time we don't have a Justice Center in place. That activity would not come into being until the year 2003. So that's why there's zeros there. If we look at the $14.9 million projected ending cash balance in 2001, turn our page to page 2, we have a beginning balance of 14.9, which again is simply the carryover from 2001. We're projecting revenue next year at $41.1 million, expenditures at $46.2. We're looking at an ending unencumbered cash balance in the county general fund of about $10 million. I'm getting a lot of puzzled looks on my face. I'm a little bit worried. I hope everybody's with me at this point. And I'll be glad after the meeting also to go over some of this. I know it's material that's very technical, but it has to be said to get an accurate portrayal of what's going on. Turning to page 3. Maybe we could have a drum roll on this particular schedule because it's the ending one for a $51 million Justice Center. Again, what this statement says to the reader is that with a beginning cash balance of about $10 million, taking in what we anticipate to be revenues and the expenditure levels, and Justice Center operation and maintenance costs of about $1.9 million in 2003. By the end of 2003, we're anticipating a pretty meager $2.6 million general fund balance. I didn't go into 2004 because the message here clearly with the numbers that we have is that if a $51 million Justice Center is constructed with the operating figures that we have, maintenance that were constructed earlier in the finance, interest, debt service are included, the county would in effect run into the red in the year 2004. So the message is, bottom line, with this type of facility, could it be built? Yes. Could we operate it? Yes, we could for 1 year, 2003, or through 2003. At the end of 2003, the general fund's in trouble. The next page, we're going to skip for now. I'll get back to that in a few minutes. Let's go to page 5 of 6. The essence of page 5 is Justice Center analysis. You notice now we're turning to a $32 million facility. And not to drag everybody through all the numbers again, the message here is simply this. As it's projected, if we go to a $32 million Justice Center, the cash impact will be such that the building could be built, there'll be operating maintenance, finance charges, less than a $51 million facility. But if you go over to column that's addressed as 2005, you'll see that we would be down to a meager $1.3 million ending unencumbered cash balance at the end of 2005. Then we're broke, or would be. How does that compare to the previous analysis we worked on that we saw a minute ago? The difference is, you'll note that in the previous analysis we had enough funding capability to move through 2003. With a smaller structure at the $32 million level, it gives us about 2 years additional time in funding. Finally, on this schedule, package, I should say, page 6 of 6. What we're looking here at is estimates of what a $25 million facility would cost and would need in terms of funding. The message here is that, of course, costs would be less with a $25 million facility. The amount of borrowing would be less. It'd be about $3 million. The interest would be less, obviously, on less borrowing. What this tells us is that, can we build a facility of this size? Yes, we can. Can we operate it? Yes, we can. But the funding would be available through the general fund, to keep the general fund in position to carry on. We can go through the year 2007. So with a smaller size facility, we have about 7 years, including the year 2001, to keep our funding at adequate levels. Just a few more comments, and I'll be complete here on what I'm trying to convey. I have a section called conclusion, which I think is logical. The conclusions I reached as the fiscal guy addresses the notion, can we afford to build a $51 million Justice Center? Yes. But as the numbers have shown, can we afford to build this facility, equip it, finance it, pay for operating and maintenance costs, and accept then the probable reality that by the end of the year 2003, the general fund cash carryover unencumbered balance will have been drained to the meager level of about $2.6 million. Can we afford to build a $32 million Justice Center? Second question. Yes, we can. And would we be capable of financial support for this size facility? Yes, we would. But again, perhaps the more important question would be the probable reality that by the end of the year 2005, in this case, the cash carryover balance of the county general fund will have been drained to about the level of $1.3 million. And finally, could we afford a $25 million facility, Justice Center facility, about half the size of the original $50 million facility? Yes. In this case, the cash balance of the county general fund would have been depleted by the end of the year 2007. Ladies and gentlemen, as in many things in life, as I ponder this, there's no knockout punch, there's no smoking gun in response to this type of inquiry. Again, is a $51 million Justice Center affordable with supportive funding for 3 years? I believe that's a value judgment the board must decide upon. Can a $32 million facility with a funding life of about 5 years through the year 2005 be deemed affordable? The board must assess that condition also. And finally, can we afford a $25 million facility with financial support for the next approximate 7 years? Again, something the board must feel comfortable with as a judgment call. A decision that must be evaluated by the board for the future, not only with the Justice Center, but with also the other priorities that the Board of Commissioners has in the coming years ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rokusi. Does the board have questions of John at this point in time? We have scheduled the architects to make a presentation to us at 10:15, and we're just a little bit over, so how do you
I appreciate everything you've done, John.
Thank you.
What I've looked at, it's pretty obvious on what we can't afford. I mean, I think there's a lot of things I think I'd like to see done in the next couple of months, and I think we talked about that, maybe taking our county budget and putting it on a 3 to 5 year budget itself. I think that was a great idea in our conversations, that we only do annual budgets here. So that's something I think maybe we should have discussions maybe in the future. But I think the easiest way out of this would be to repeal the May 27th resolution for the $50 million Justice Center. And I'd like to make a motion for that. That was May 27th of 2000. Because if we repeal that, we're left with a $25 million Justice Center, which was already passed prior to that.
I don't know, that's a lot to consider, because the size, we did put a user committee together, and I think that they should be involved also. I think we should bring them back to the table and let them know those are the people that need the Justice Center. And John, as you know, since 1997, I requested that this board put aside $10 million a year for the Justice Center in hopes that by the time the Justice Center was built, that we would be able to pay for it cash. I don't know if that was a dream or what, but I know it didn't happen, but we do have some money set aside for it. If this Justice Center were to be paid off, then would we be able to afford the operation and maintenance?
Commissioner, in answer to that, really the answer to that is that the paying off of, or I should say the financing and paying of the construction costs is really intertwined on a yearly basis with the operations and maintenance costs. So the bottom line of that is that we could not, if I understand your question correctly, pay off the building first and then go with the operating. Those two costs would be assimilated as one yearly type cost.
If we wouldn't have the debt, we could use that money for the maintenance and operation, because according to your schedule and from our conversations, it's my understanding that that debt's going to cost us X amount of dollars each year, $1 million just for interest, I think.
For the larger borrowing.
So that $1 million that we would have paid in interest and on the principal, we could use towards the operation and maintenance of the building.
If, again, the board would decide to go with the smaller facility, obviously it would reduce the amount of borrowing, which would reduce the amount of interest.
Maybe pay cash.
Am I answering that question?
Pay cash. If you pay cash, then you've got the...
You can do that if we repeal the $50 million Justice Center amount.
And go...
And we can revisit for the next maybe month or two to discuss. Maybe it might be a 26 or a 27, but right now, that's why I did not want to vote on that $2.4 million bill for the architects, because right now we're at a $50 million Justice Center. And as of today, with the money or the information that you produced, we can't afford to keep, well, we could afford to keep this place open. It's just going to be at the cost of a lot of services that I refuse to participate in. That's going to be an ugly situation. I'd prefer to avoid cutting services. This provides a lot of opportunities for other divisions of the county, other services that we provide. And that's why I made the motion for us to repeal the $50 million May 27th resolution. I'm waiting for a second. So we
I
could,
don't
so we
know
could
what
discuss
it means to repeal this. I mean, if you need a second to discuss it, I'll give you a second to discuss it.
Okay, thank you.
But what does it mean to repeal?
It means
What
we
do
go,
you mean? What do
it
you
means
want?
we go back to the original resolution of the 25 million that was agreed upon before the 50 million, and that we are back to a $25 million Justice Center. The architects can come up, we'll discuss to them to come back to us and say, this is what we can afford, now build it for us, or give us the designs and how we can make this work on a needs basis with our judges.
Yeah, but then what happens to the space? You're going to bring the size of the building down. Is that going to be sufficient? I mean, we have to serve the public. That's the major
Exactly. And
thing,
that-
to serve the public in the best way that, you know,
Oh,
that we can.
I agree, and I feel this is the best way to do it. Because right now, the general fund's going to be gone in 3 years. Well, and then services are going to have to start to be reviewed at which service, it's a priority issue. Are we going to start cutting out services on everyone's priorities? I mean, there's a lot more to this than just, I mean, it's a $50 million Justice Center. I believe, I mean, we talked about it today, Mr. Cortez is up to what, 1.5 million that we've purchased in lands and buildings and that are not even on this. So we're really probably closer to a $55 to $60 million Justice Center. Let's face it, anytime a government agency tries to build something, it never comes in under, and they try.
Well, we've got a cap on this, a resolution that put a cap on it at $50 million. But, you know, this is what my problem has been in the past. I think we've funded too many community projects from the general fund, and now the general fund obligations are going to be suffering. And this is where we're going to see it suffer, right here in the Justice Center, where if we would have put money aside all along and prioritized our spending, I think we could have had money, more money set aside for the Justice Center today.
No, I agree, but we're not, you know, could have, would have, should have.
Yeah,
We're
I
at,
know.
We're at today. We're looking at the projections from our budget director. It doesn't support a $50 million Justice Center. By repealing the $50 million Justice Center, it leaves us with what was originally passed, which was a $25 million Justice Center. And then we can discuss with the architects. It's either that or we continue with the 51. And we're going to start spending money, which we just got today.
Excuse me.
Good morning, Elizabeth Rumix.
Good morning. If I may just make one quick comment, two quick comments. One, it seems to me there's an extraordinary amount of information having to been pulled together in a great deal of time, and all of the people he mentioned and everyone else certainly are to be congratulated. It's also most illuminating to the public to see these kinds of figures and so on. But more importantly, I would just like to again further my request which I think is highly desirable, that no important decision such of this sort come up immediately and be voted upon immediately. I think it would be, given the discussion going on amongst you right now, I think it might be well worthwhile to stop and vote on it next week if you care to, but to vote on it immediately without a chance to consider all of the complications, including revised architect's fees. I should be amazed if there weren't any. Therefore, I would ask again that the commissioners consider, in very important decisions like this, not taking a vote on it at the same meeting.
No, I agree with that. We were going to discuss it last Thursday, but there was only two of us. And I felt that all three of us should be here, and unfortunately for the next few meetings, there's only going to be two of us again. This was the last meeting. We're going to have all three board members here, and I feel that the decision should be made by all three and not two.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, Commissioner Moore. I do have a question. Commissioner Vasey, did you have something further?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, we can't take a short-term view of the building either, because it's also got to be a functional building for many years to come in the future.
I agree.
And I don't want to short us on space or the judges, because, you know, they've been involved in this. And my main concern is the square footage. What is the actual need, and not for just 5 years from now, because I see what happened in this building. 25 years, and we were out of space like 5 years ago, and people are on top of each other. Then I also looked at what Betty said, okay? You said you can't look at the past, go into the future. Then Betty had the suggestion of going out for contributions. Although I disagree with naming the building after one individual, I do agree that to save the taxpayers from us having to put or ask for a tax levy put on the ballot, I think if we can get participation from industries and companies or individual people that can contribute to this and put a wall plaque up or bricks with names on them of the contributors, I think this might be a way to go, and this would be saving actually taxpayers for the next 25 years maybe from paying a tax. And the companies would get a tax deduction because it's you know, a contribution would be tax deductible. Maybe there's things like that that we can look at and pay for it up front, pay for it in cash, and then use that money for the maintenance and operation. If it's possible, that was my question.
No.
I don't know if that's possible.
No, I agree. I think any way we can think outside of the box to fund this project is fantastic. But the problem is we're stuck at a $49.9 million Justice Center that we have to fund. The budget director just said we're out of money the first year we open this, or the general fund will be depleted. There's a lot of more issues coming up that we're going to have to deal with. I'd rather deal with how we're going to fund projects than how we're going to pay bills and how we're going to keep the county services from being cut. The $25 million decision that was already made previously does that, I believe, at least for 7 years, and keeps us out of the woods for 7 years to probably design other forms of revenue streams to offset some of these costs. This is my concern. The path we're on right now will jeopardize future services. And that's what John has basically shown me.
I do have a question, Commissioner Moore. You alluded to your resolution then putting us back to the original $25 million. That was so long ago that I'm not sure that $25 million was cast in stone, and that's kind of my question. We looked at 3 options here today, and we've got a square footage figure that goes with each cost. And as John said, the size of the present administration building, the 125,000 square feet, would bring us about $25 million cost. I just want to know if your motion would exclude looking at the next level. I think we need to leave that option open if we're going to revisit this issue.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. We don't know. I mean, this is, like we've talked about, I think we still got more decisions, but right now the path we are on is a $50 million Justice Center. Everyone's working on a $50 million Justice Center. What I want to do is just put the brakes on the train that's running through right now and say, okay, let's stop, let's get off the train and revisit so we can maybe make more motions so the 3 of us can decide, and we might need a 28, a 32, or maybe a square feet issue. We have a lot more to work here, but right now we can't. I mean, the train's leaving the station right now, and it already has. I'm just trying to stop it and say, let's get off this $50 million train.
Okay, thank you.
I guess that's all I'm trying to say.
All right,
Are you trying to say to revisit the whole project? Maybe we
don't
could
want
just
to-
put this on hold until we revisit the whole thing and
just what I did, I mean, just with me looking at the numbers, I mean, there's ways we can knock a couple floors off, reinforce some foundations for future growth. There's certain things that we need to discuss, not today, but with the architects to say, okay, how can we redesign the building instead of going straight up, maybe going up a bit, and just what's cheaper for us to get maybe 130, 150 square foot building at a cost of maybe, $25 million. Then at that point we start. I'm not going to say we're not going to sell some naming rights, who knows, but at that point, maybe we can get creative to come up with cash, to come up with different ways to fund the Justice Center. But right now, we need a bottom line, and the bottom line I propose is that the bottom line right now is $50 million. I'm trying to change that to 25.
Can you just eliminate the figures until we have some further discussion and revisit this whole thing?
Because I just didn't vote on a bill today for 2.4.
Just a clarification, that was not a bill, that was an appropriation. So I don't want people to misunderstand.
Right.
So we could put a freeze
I'd rather
on
just,
everything.
well, see what I do, but that stops it. Right now, I think we got a window of about 30 to 45 days, according to the flow charts that I've been looking at. And I think we could probably revisit this in the next 30 days and be done with it. I mean, that's going to be a discussion with the architects pretty soon.
If, in fact, the board passes this resolution repealing the $50 million cap, will part of that then, I think, part of that action will be some marching orders, so to speak, to the architects?
I would think so.
You intend to have that discussion?
Yes, I'm prepared.
Today?
Yeah.
Okay. That was that's where you were going with that?
Mm-hmm. Is that, or if we stay where we're at, then it's a real short discussion with the architects.
Okay.
So.
I see a gentleman standing at the mic, although we haven't opened this up for the public. You're here, so go right ahead.
I could come back up.
Please identify yourself and make there's a lull here, so we might as well.
Thanks for putting me in. Michael Beatty, 1389 Nichols Avenue in Lorain. As I've watched the total on this building continue to climb, and the discussions, sometimes they just seem so superfluous on why we're even considering numbers like this. Last fall, there was a referendum to talk about possibly having more representation in this county by more individuals in this particular body because people felt they were being underserved. Now we're watching this situation that's taken us 6, 11, 20, 25, 30, 32, 51, 55, $58 million. And when you consider all the other situations we have going on in the county, including some of these numbers that are shown by your own department, showing that they're expecting a flat recessionary period for the next couple of years. We're looking at a loss of $4.1 million to the county and beyond due to anticipated impact of census changes. And I'm not sure exactly what that means because I think the county has grown but has redistributed itself in this course of time. But when I think that we might be spending $20 or $30 million more than we need to do the job and where that money could be better spent, I just can't believe we're still at this point.
Well, so that's what we don't know, if there is a need, how much the need is. We're going to have to go by the square footage. And we can't.
I guess everybody has to have their slice of the pie, but somehow I think maybe we should make more use of maybe the areas that are already in downtown Elyria, because certainly this building will make a tremendous impact on the city, and I have no problem with that. But I'd like to think that we're sitting on $32 million, and we have never even come close to approaching this amount that we've got set. These are tax dollars. $32.5 million. You know, the county could virtually shut down for 1 year collecting taxes, and we would have enough money to carry this county through that year. That's how much surplus we have. And I think really when you consider so much more out there, where if we were to distribute the $10 or $20 million alone, what we could do in this county with economic development and some roads that need to be taken care of. I mean, just $500,000 to the city of Lorain could qualify for other government monies, and this year's we would be doing roads and not sitting back because of a tight budget. I think the money can be better spent, and I think really you just have to work a little harder to figure out how to spend a little less.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Beatty. Does the board have further discussion on this issue? Do you want to open it up for public comment, or do you want to? Okay. There's a motion on made by Commissioner Moore and seconded by Commissioner Vacy that we repeal the May 27th, 2000 legislation that allowed for a $49.9 million Justice Center. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Nay.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye. Now, having said that, where do we go? That's my question.
Yeah.
Architects are here to discuss.
Okay.
Okay, fellas, you're up. Come on.
Can I ask exactly what does that mean now that we repealed that and put a cap on it for $25 million?
But we didn't put a cap on it for Commissioner Vacy. That kind of was my question to begin with. And I think that this, by repealing that legislation, Jerry, can you help us out a little bit? Because
please.
Come on.
Because I think, I'm of the opinion that we reduced the size of the Justice Center and the whole project to a $25 million.
No, I don't think so, and that's what I wanted to clarify. Go ahead, Jim.
What it appears is that all you did was simply say, we're not committed to a $50 million Justice Center. Correct. And I thought I heard it discussed here, it may be 25, maybe 28, maybe 35. I don't think now there's a firm number. I think we're working towards a firm number. Commissioner Moore, is that what you meant to do?
$25 million? I heard $25 million here.
That was originally passed, I think, a year ago. I don't want to put Roxanne on.
I believe it was last August that it was.
Roxanne, would you please read the motion?
That we're repealing the resolution that was approved of May 27th of 2000 that was listed as a $49 million Justice Center project.
Where'd the $25 million come in?
That was already approved prior to that. You doubled it on May 27th.
I guess that my question was pretty specific to Commissioner Moore when I asked him about this resolution, because I wanted to make sure that it didn't reduce it to $25 million or that size.
We didn't reduce anything. All we did was we stopped stopped the $50 million Justice Center. That's what we just did. Now, the architects are going to have to explain to us with Mr. Rokasi's budget numbers. He just explained to us that we cannot afford a $50 million Justice Center. How much can we afford? He threw out 3 different case scenarios. There could be 4. But if we're at 25 right now, which I believe that was the last resolution passed, and then you passed a 50, which means if we need to increase this amount to maybe 28 to 30, if that's what it's going to take to make the project work, then we can revisit it, and all 3 of us can decide then.
We haven't decided.
We haven't decided.
We've just said,
Okay, then I would like to ask the board if I can rescind my vote and reconsider it and change it to a yes.
Oh, I think that would be wonderful. And you made that a motion. I'll second that.
Thank you for your explanation, but I really thought you were putting it at 25
No.
million.
No, no, no.
Now,
Okay, thanks.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
So now we all 3 want to look at this.
Right.
Right.
Good.
Now, and what I propose to the architects, if they, I don't know which one wants to stand up first, but we can only afford a house worth $25 million. Can you build it?
No, Commissioner Moore said 25 million. I want to look at, because I'm
Get this
looking.
25 million out of my
John
head.
said that this 125,000 square feet is the same size as where we are now, and I'm not sure that taking everything into consideration, which you and the board has done over a period of time, and this has been a period of time, and we worked on this for a long time. I just want to editorialize a little bit. We purchased the Y property in 1994, which is the site of where we want to put this building now. At least the present plans call for it, and it was with a future, for future use in 1994. Well, this is 2001, and the future is upon us. And I think it's always healthy to revisit issues, especially when you get estimated numbers that say you may or may not be able to afford it after a period of time. So having said all that, I forget what my original question was. Oh, I don't want to be constrained at looking at 125,000 square feet. If in fact 155 at 32 million in the middle might be better, that's
Right, and that's fine.
Okay. So
Well,
Randy Gordon.
Yeah, Randy Gordon, Gordon spelling. This is a little bit impromptu because, we knew that, there was going to be a lot of discussion and about the operating cost and what the commissioners might choose to do.
And please remember this, a little impromptu on our part too.
Yeah, so, I'm not really prepared to set a direction, but I would say that, we've been bidding a lot of projects in the last month and a half, and we've seen the market change pretty dramatically in terms of construction cost. I'm not sure what that's going to be doing toward the end of this year at all, but I can tell you that the numbers that were prepared and estimated for this project, and John Dragala here can speak to this, but we've been seeing some pretty dramatic reductions in construction cost numbers, which I think all that says is that the quicker we get on with this and get something going, I think the better off we'll be in terms of value for the county. I think that's very important because the longer this waits, I think we don't know what the market's going to do in the future, and I think we should be taking advantage of that marketplace right now. In terms of the program, what I think is important is Bob Schwartz was here at the last meeting and described the future space that was allocated in the building for the year 2025, and that amounted to, I think, about 24,000 net square feet. And when you take the net square footage and add all of the circulation and walls and so forth, it probably comes up to close to 40,000 square feet of future space that's dedicated in the 245,000 square feet. So I think what I want to be careful of is I don't want to shortchange the court, and I want to make sure that I think it's prudent to go back and look and examine all of these numbers and the square footage and justify the space. I think that's certainly worthwhile. But I want to make sure that we don't jump to some conclusion and just set an arbitrary number that we can't serve the court in their needs. And I will say that this has been gone over very thoroughly with the court over quite a long period of time, and it wasn't an arbitrary number that was come up with in terms of the program. The document was very thoroughly prepared, and unless the court changes their requirements, you know, that it's their program that we're implementing. So I think as your architect, we're certainly prepared to sit down and look at alternatives. In fact, we have some suggestions ourselves that could certainly save the county money. Exactly where that's going to be at this point in time, I couldn't say, but we're certainly, our team is ready to assist the county and the court in looking at this and coming up with alternatives and suggestions. So I don't know what else I can say at this point, but I think it's going to take a lot of work for us to have that dialogue and interchange and make sure that, you know, we're not shortchanging the users of the building.
But unfortunately, nobody's asked how to pay for it, and that's kind of where we're at today.
So
would it be better, since you're on the spot, how much time would you need? Maybe come back next Tuesday or next Thursday and say, hey, here's some of our ideas. Maybe not in such a formal setting, but maybe.
I think we'd like to have a work session.
Like that's, I mean, something like that.
Yeah,
with,
a work session would
with
be.
the commissioners and.
If I may interrupt, recognizing that any work session is not going to include Commissioner Blair until the first week of April.
We could go down there.
That would be wonderful.
By God, Commissioner, I'll follow you.
We just save some money, right?
Work sessions in Florida sound wonderful. So
we could keep her informed through the process.
I think
I don't want to make any decisions until after she returns, but maybe I think we have. Right now, from looking at the Carbone schedule, I think we're at a critical stage to make a decision quickly.
Absolutely.
We have to do it this month. I really believe that. I don't want to stop the center. I just want to stop the bleeding. And I think if we can just brainstorm a little bit, I want public meetings. We can sit in this room, not up here, down on the table, and if the public would like to participate and watch how we operate, that would be fine. But I'd like to do something similar to that. And you could come back to us and say, here is similar to what our budget director did. Here is what you get for a $10 million Justice Center, okay? Here's what you get. I mean, well, I don't know what the numbers are, but maybe you I think you get a sense of what we're looking at.
Sure.
And maybe come back and say, cut this out, cut this, do this. Maybe, and for future growth, instead of building it now, maybe if we were to go along 3rd Street and reinforce the foundation, maybe build up, I don't know. Maybe that's not a discussion for today, but maybe a working session, if you don't mind.
Well, we have a lot of thoughts. They're just not, you know, formalized, and
okay.
I mean, we've been thinking a lot about it, but it seems to us that we need to have the communication with the county to look at alternatives.
I think we have to include the users also.
Correct.
If we make it a...
Certainly.
Mr. Gordon wanted to respond to that.
Yeah. I mean, that's been our approach all along. I mean, we're trying to design a building that works for the court and the county in the long term. I recognize the budget consideration and the dollars and so forth, and that's one of the ingredients of coming up with the right solution. So it seems to me that, you know, they have to be part of the effort.
And Mr. Cortez?
And they may have some good suggestions themselves.
Right.
I was simply going to state that we can obviously invite the stakeholders to any work sessions that we have. And if I know beforehand when we're going to do that, I'll make sure they're invited.
Would next Tuesday be sufficient time to bring something together? 2 weeks? Okay. If you guys, I mean, you guys probably have more ideas on how to do this, and I'd rather have you guys have sufficient time to bring it to us.
I would say probably a couple weeks.
Well, not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after then?
Yeah, maybe in that time
Which would
frame.
be...
You want to make it Tuesday?
Doesn't matter to me.
I think, yeah, Thursday's fine too. If the public would rather come in on Thursdays, that would be fine.
And why don't we just make it on Thursday, because it's our regular day. If we have to stay all day, let's stay all day.
Okay.
I think 2 weeks from today would be a good time. It would give us some time to really have some good alternatives.
Okay, thank you.
So
Put them on the agenda on the 15th to come in and discuss a...
So that'll be on the Tuesday, you want to...
No, Thursday they
I'm sorry.
decided.
You were too busy not listening again.
Is everybody going to be here on...
Actually, I was
You won't
talking
be here?
about something with Mr. Ennis concerning the resolution that was repealed. But do you want me to go out and make sure all the stakeholders know to be there?
I mean,
Yes,
I think they're
please.
going to know.
Well, I think we have to make sure that they know. Please inform them.
Okay.
Do we establish a time for this meeting now? You're going to work this in with the regular agenda
be
and
a
give it a
regular-
specific time?
Well, why don't we start early that day?
9 o'clock.
Say 9 o'clock. And if we start at...
I knew this would work.
If we start at 9, then we can, why don't we just go do this for 10 o'clock?
Well, why don't we do this? Yeah, okay. That
All right,
makes
that'll
sense.
give us an hour to get to our agenda, and
Okay.
it makes it easier for the people, the judges and so forth, anybody wants to come, we have a firm time.
Before we conclude this,
How much time is available for the meeting?
Excuse me?
How much time would be available for the meeting?
Once we
how much do you need?
2 hours?
Well, I think it could be probably a good morning and a half, I would say.
Okay. Well, I think our agenda is to try to get done at 9 o'clock, between 9 and 10, and conclude our regular board business. And then we would have to be open the rest of the day for you.
Oh, that would be perfect.
Lunch would be nice, but I'm not saying. You know.
Oh, we could take a break.
You could order
We order
pizza
pizza?
and feed everybody. I mean, it's a working meeting.
And you can always fly up and say hi.
Are you paying for my
Commissioner-
flight too?
Commissioner Blair, we can arrange for a speakerphone to be here if you want to be in
Yeah.
conference with us during
I
the
don't
meeting.
think
I can have that set up for you. Just an option.
Okay, I'll just, let me collect my thoughts and I'll be in contact with you.
Okay, before we conclude this
Does the
part of
board-
it, I would just like to thank John. John, I'd like to thank you, your staff, and everybody else that you mentioned up there for the excellent job that you did.
very much,
And I'll second that.
Crystal ball.
Of course.
I'll second that.
An 8 ball.
Does the Board of Commissioners have any questions of the architects at this point, or are you
I
going
think
to
we're
save
having a
them
whole
all for
bunch
the
next
next
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Be ready.
Okay.
I think that the board will be looking to you as the advisors on this project to make some suggestions to us about ways that we could,
Okay.
Pull it off.
That was my intent, but
well,
Creative
yeah,
ways, like-
creative ways,
Yeah,
whatever.
I also-
Not necessarily financially so much as things cost money. How could we have a more compact and still address the needs that have been presented to us?
I also understand that pursuant to some of the commissioners' desires that First Energy has been talking to the architects.
Who, please?
First Energy.
Oh, thank you.
About possible payment of certain building infrastructures and then leasing back to the county. So that may have some cost advantages, and I think that dialogue is ongoing right now. Is that correct? So that may be some creative financing.
that probably would be a good time to at least present that as an option, because that seemed pretty interesting in terms of capital.
Absolutely, capital reduction,
Yeah.
the
Right.
outlay. Mike, can you be ready next week to have some...
In 2 weeks.
2 weeks, I apologize.
On the
Thanks, Bob.
15th.
On the 15th, can your wizards have something back that, this is your time if you want in, so...
Yeah, we
Oh,
appreciate that. We could have some preliminary plans together.
And can you work with Mr. Rokasi? And I don't know if he had those numbers when he did his presentation, so.
They weren't firmed up yet, sir. so
Okay.
it's just...
I know this is probably something that you wouldn't even consider, but please, don't consider decreasing the quality of the material going into the building. I know you probably, that's the farthest thing from your mind, but I just want to...
Well, it's our intent to build a building that's going to be here for 50 years, so...
Maybe 200. We want a building that we can go back in there and revise it or, remodel it and all that stuff. It'll be here long after we're gone, so
Yeah.
we want the best we can for the money
Well,
that
that's,
we can afford.
we're trying to accomplish that. And, it's not it's not just an easy answer to just say you're going to do something and slice something off. You have to take all these things into consideration, but our intention is to build a building that is going to serve the county for, a long time. So I don't think we want to look in that direction, but, we have a lot of other ideas, so.
Okay,
and this,
fantastic.
the First Energy idea, You know, I haven't looked at all the detail, but it certainly was something I think we should consider. So I'm anxious to see how those numbers come out.
Maybe somebody else has some ideas too. Maybe they'll listen to this tape or read something in the newspaper, and maybe somebody else in the public will have some good ideas that we could use, hopefully. I mean, we don't know everything, let's face it.
Well,
There's got to be people out there that...
Now, wait a minute, I wouldn't go quite that far.
No, we don't. There's people out there that know more than we do, and maybe they can all jump in and help.
I agree 100%.
So we look forward to our discussion.
Thank you. Oh, okay. I thought you were...
I'm not leaving. No, are we done?
Thank you, Mr. Gordon.
No, thank you very much for attending today, folks. I really do appreciate it.
Madam President, do you want to, we've been at this for 2 hours, you want to take a short 10-minute break?
No,
a 10-minute break.
because we're going to go down this agenda, and we're going to get done in time for the 11:15 public hearing, and then if we have to take a 1-minute break, we'll think about it. But listen, let's go. Okay? Onward, James. Madam Clerk, we're on item number 9, which
Personal
is...
summary sheet.
And I think our intent is to have an executive session, a brief, very brief executive session. Is that correct?
I'm learning that nothing's brief today, Commissioner, so
Well-
yes, that's our intent.
Okay, so then we won't act on item number 9 right now.
Okay.
Number 10.
Okay, number 10, authorized payment in the amount of $28 to Pulte Title Agency of Ohio as reimbursement for a conveyance fee paid on an incorrect purchase amount given to the transfer office. The purchase amount was reported as being $357,740 with a conveyance fee of $1,431.20. The correct purchase amount should have read $350,740 with a conveyance fee of $1,403.20. The Lorain County Auditor has reviewed and recommends approval.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Authorize the release and payment of retainage to Suburban Process Piping Incorporated in the amount of $3,535.12 for work performed on the mentally ill, chemically abusing residential facility, that's the MICA facility, Lorain County Board of Mental Health Project. The contract is complete, and the contractor has submitted the necessary paperwork.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Received the annual bridge inspection report, Form BR-86, as prepared by the county engineer in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 5543.20. This annual report complies with the requirements of the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration, and the Ohio Department of Transportation. These inspection reports are for the bridges that are over 10-foot span on former county highways within various municipalities for the year 2000.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mrs.
Aye.
Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Approve the equipment purchases for the Lorain County Regional Airport Authority in the total amount of $181,500 as follows. A 65 HP mower tractor with 22-foot rotary gang mower, $53,500 state contract. 16-foot rotary gang mower, $14,000. 2 trim mowers, state contract, $20,000. 150 kW 3-phase emergency backup generator, $65,000. 3/4-ton pickup with 4-wheel drive extend cab and 8-foot plow, state contract, $29,000.
So moved.
Second. John, this is part of their budget, isn't it? It's in the budget form.
Yes, it is, Commissioner. It's already been included.
Okay, thank you, John.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
No.
I did.
That's Mr. Moore. That's Mr. Moore. Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Approve and enter into contract and issue purchase order to Mastermind Incorporated of Elmore, Ohio, to update the county engineer's traffic sign inventory and perform a compliance check to ensure that all signs are installed in accordance with the Ohio Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. The engineer has applied for and received a grant from the Ohio Department of Public Services, which grant is on a 100% reimbursement basis. The Ohio Department of Public Safety has reviewed and approved the contract. Contract is in the amount of $13,500.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Issue notice to proceed letter to Bender Trucking and Excavating of Avon, Ohio for the demolition of 215-219 Court Street in Elyria, Ohio, effective March 5th, 2001. Contract was awarded on February 8th, 2001 by resolution number 01-133.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
And authorize a 1-year extension of memorandum of agreement for deposit of public funds with Lorain National Bank. The Lorain County Child Support Agency currently has 2 accounts with Lorain National Bank. One was the original depository account, which handled collections through the old ATEX system. The more recent account was established to handle the SETS activity. After the SETS account is reconciled, the account will be closed and the funds will be transferred to Bank 1, which handles child support funds for the state of Ohio. The fees being charged by Lorain National Bank should not total more than $5,000. The contract would be effective March 1st, 2001 through February 28th, 2002. We'd authorize the president to execute on behalf of the board.
I'll move for approval and also to amend it to authorize the president or any board member or any one board member to sign.
Second.
Any more discussion? Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
And to authorize the appointment of Ron Twining as Lorain County's representative on the Economic Development Advisory Subcommittee to NOACA's Transportation Advisory Committee, TAC, effective March 1st, 2001, and appoint Elizabeth Rumix of Oberlin, Ohio, as a member representing Lorain County on NOACA's Citizen Participation Advisory Council, also effective March 1st, 2001.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Authorize payment in the amount of $1,901.31 to Schwartz, Spence, and Boyer Funeral Homes for the burials of indigent veterans John Odika and Fred Sukalik. Pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, the county is obligated to pay the sum of up to $1,000 towards the burial of veterans that are found indigent.
So moved. Second.
Oh, gee.
Have your choice.
We'll take turns. Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
And to reject bids received for the Tire Collection Day event and extend the current contract with Central Ohio Contractors through December 31st, 2001, as recommended pursuant to Prosecutor's Opinion Number 01-33.
So moved.
Okay, I got a second? Okay, I'll second.
Discussion?
Yes. Why are we rejecting the bids?
Prosecutor's opinion.
Yeah, it's my understanding that we received a prosecutor's opinion indicating that there was some problems with the proposal process, and he therefore recommended that the entire process be thrown out. He didn't actually recommend that we continue with Central Contractors, but we do have a current contract with them. And that was not Mr. Innes as the prosecutor. At the time, it was Mr. Carasy, who is employed by the Solid Waste District. I believe he sent a letter to the board indicating those difficulties.
Should we reissue new bids, or?
I would have to defer to Mr. Billman at this time.
I would just like to comment that our time frame is drawing close,
Okay.
and we have this Pride Day coming up, which is
Oh,
in
is it?
May.
Guess we don't have enough time, so that's why they...
And we do have the option to renew Central Ohio Contractors'
That's fine.
bid for another
That's fine.
year.
Okay.
Do you have further questions?
Nope, that's it.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Abstain.
Okay, we did item number 20. Number 21, to amend resolution number 01-148 that was adopted February 15, 2001, to advertise for bids to resurface Richelieu Avenue in Sheffield Lake, which is a fiscal year 2000 CDBG funded project. This amendment is only to reflect a change in advertising dates to February 27th and March 6, 2001 in the Chronicle Telegram and Morning Journal.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
I don't know if there's everybody been here for like 10 or 15.
We have to break at 11:15 for this public hearing, which is going to just be...
Are they here? I don't see them here from the front.
Yeah, they are.
What, for the annex? Yes.
Annexation.
Why don't we have them go right now?
Well, because the time says 11:15.
There might be some people that are not here.
Want to tell them what we were just discussing?
We're discussing how to proceed. Item number 22 has a lengthy presentation. We do have a public hearing at 11:15. That's 5 minutes. We know we're not going to accomplish this in 5 minutes. We were trying to strategize what's the best way to proceed so that we don't start a discussion and then stop it. And
So I know some of them were here at 10:15 and 10 o'clock, and maybe if we do take just a 5-minute break, because at 11:15 we have to do the hearing, correct?
yes. 11:15 is
And then after that hearing, we'll just go through the presentations in order here.
on item number 22.
So, yeah.
Would you like to do 23?
Where I didn't know what is 23. Oh, sure, what's 23? Oh,
That's a short one.
yeah, I want to do 23.
Can I do that?
Okay.
It's your recommendation, so you get
So
to
moved.
move. I'll
Oh, I
second.
don't have to even read it, okay.
I'll read it. It's authorizing the appointment of Bob Sexton as a member of the Fair Housing Board for one-year term effective March 1st, 2001.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Okay.
Then,
And then the meeting, the public hearing could only last, you're probably looking at what? The public hearing?
It's my understanding from speaking with Ms. Dennis that it should be very brief.
Should be very brief.
we anticipate the 11:15 a continued public hearing
Want to do the old business?
will be brief.
Want to do the old business, Betty? Get that out of the
Sure,
way.
absolutely. Item G, old business 1, Madam Clerk.
To authorize First Communications of Akron, Ohio as the county's long-distance carrier.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. We're on page 5 of 7, bottom, old business, item number 1. Sorry.
Authorize the First Communications of Akron, Ohio as the county's long-distance carrier at 6.5 cents intrastate and interstate rate. 3 quotes were submitted, and First Communications was the lowest quote received. They are also a County Commissioners Association of Ohio endorsed company with an excellent recommendation for service. The county representative is local, which will benefit the county when situations such as changes, additions, and removals, and any servicing problems may arise. Nancy Bryant, the telecommunications supervisor, has reviewed and recommends approval.
I'll so move.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Yes. Yesterday, I talked with one of the staff members from CCAO. She called and wanted to know if we went into a contract or an agreement with First Communications and how they were serving us, and if we were satisfied. So I told her we didn't do it yet. We'll be doing it today, but she said that she wanted us to call back, and in the future here, as soon as we get some,
Monitor the
feel of where we're at with them, that they want to know how this company is servicing us. And I asked her about those PIC charges, because it's our understanding that the First Communications is not charging the PIC charges, and she said that she thinks the local server will charge those charges. Somebody has to charge them.
Yeah, is Ms. Bryant here? I saw her earlier. Did she leave? Okay. It is my understanding from talking to Ms. Bryant that we wouldn't be charged the PIC charges, but I do recognize what you're saying, Commissioner, and
The local
that may be
carrier.
an issue with Alltel. I believe she did inquire into that issue, and I believe she was told there wouldn't be any, but sometimes, miscommunication occurs. It may be that if the LD carrier is not going with the fix, that somebody else is. Nancy, did you come in?
Yes.
Come on up here, Nancy.